All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, hour number 2. 8 a.m. Monday, December 1st, right here on Jocks. A couple folks that are chiming in on Alex Golesh. A couple folks chiming in on our commentary around Lane Kiffin. Johnny Red Dot tweeting into the show. You can be a part of the show as well, at Mac and Cube. He tweets in, at Cole Cubic, at Greg McElroy. Why isn't Summerall not getting the same treatment? Isn't he coaching Tulane until end of season? He is. I feel like it's a smidge different based on the fact that you're not going to be at a place that's playing against your team next. But
same thing in North
season,
Texas, by the way.
Every
Eric
year.
Morris.
Yeah. And also, what do you always say is king, Greg? Leverage?
Leverage.
Yeah. I mean, Keith Carter didn't have to let him. Tulane's front office probably be smart to let John Summerall continue to coach.
Correct.
Same thing with Eric Morris at North Texas. Like you want those guys to be around, and you want them to help your program best they can. I don't know exactly how to lay out the differences in those situations if you kind of just don't get it, but I feel like we tried. I look at that and kind of feel like that explanation sort of handles itself, but maybe I'm wrong, and I shouldn't view it that way. I don't know, but nonetheless. Okay. Scott Shazer tweeting the show. I don't agree with that, Greg McElroy, on many things, but I do agree with him on don't mess with Happy. Before all this LSU drama, Lane Kiffin seemed to be happy at Ole Miss. Hope he made the right call. I do kind of wonder. I mean, listen, we know the differences in the program, right? But we just saw what was considered to be a top 10 head coach in the sport, an elite head coach in the sport, go to LSU and not work out. So, I do think there was this mindset that it was a given that you're going to win big when you go there.
True.
But I think it's also been proven that Nick Saban's a little bit different than everybody else. So, I don't feel like he should be a comp to what you can do when you go somewhere. Like, nobody should look at the Alabama job and be like, well, look what Nick did. Like, you're probably not
different
doing
era,
that.
too.
Yeah, and you're probably
Different
not doing
era.
what he did at LSU. Like, Ed Orgeron was a great collector of talent. He accumulated a lot of it in a short period of time and made a couple of really good coaching decisions, mainly Joe Brady, and it worked out. Like, it worked, and they were awesome. Les Miles, a little bit of a different path, but situation was pretty good. He found a way to continue to make it go. Which, by the way, I did not know that Glenn Ellerby, the Tennessee offensive line coach, had spent some time at LSU with Les as like an analyst or an assistant offensive line coach. We were talking about it on the field before the game. And I looked at him, so you know toss lead really well. He just started dying laughing. He goes, I can give you toss lead against every look there is. He goes, every single look.
Is it toss lead or is it pitch power? Because toss lead or pitch power, two very different plays, you know?
Well,
I mean, goodness gracious. It's like, but they look the exact same to everybody else that doesn't know ball. Like, it's unbelievable. Yeah, toss lead, pitch power, secure the backside. And that's what every quarterback wants to do is just a quick pitch, and then you got to secure the backside if there's a crashing end. I mean, who doesn't want to do that?
It's no different than split zone now, except you're asking a tight end to do it. Y'all can handle that.
Yeah, okay, a little tight end's a little different than Q.
Get over there and cut off the backside. No problem. Whatever.
Yeah, cut off the backside, please. If they're crashing, please go ahead and secure that for us. Just take on a blitzing linebacker off the edge. Here's the funny thing, though, about – and I know a lot of people will have a hard time understanding this, but can I just please explain why Lane Kiffin took this job? And I want you to actually counter this. Why don't you do me a favor, Cole, and why don't you play the role of an Ole Miss supporter here? And I'll play the role
that's what
of –
they want.
Okay, well, it's fine. You play the role of
anybody.
anybody.
I'll counter this for you. I can
just counter it.
Yeah.
I'll make the pitch. Pretend I'm Jimmy Sexton, because I can imagine, and I will tell you this. Hey, I'll be Jimmy Sexton / Nick Saban / Lane Kiffin. Okay, I'll be the bad guy here. That's fine. You can be the good guy and tell me why this was a ridiculously dumb move. One, Lane in the last few years has been very heavily reliant on the portal, correct? We're all on the same page.
correct.
Right? that is not a sustainable recipe. Like it will produce in some situations tremendous results. And then in other situations, it can completely collapse upon itself. Now, in Lane's scenario, the last 3 years, it's worked very well, correct? But
Yes.
one would argue, based on the personnel that they actually had on their roster in 2024, that season was a remarkable failure. Based on their personnel, to lose 3 games, one to a Kentucky team that was well below 500 at home, the one to a Florida team that was 500 or slightly better than that on the road, and there was no shame in losing the game there in the middle of the year to LSU on the road at night. That's a tough game, right? Like, so you can forgive the LSU loss last year, even though you led wire to wire, you still lost the game, and anyone can understand why. It's hard to win there at night. The other two can't happen, not with your personnel versus their personnel. So if you look at how they've gone about their business, yes, they've won 10 games a year, but when you are as reliant on the portal as Ole Miss has been the last few years, you run the risk of being Florida State. You do. You can have amazing years where you're 13-0, and then you can have years in which the whole thing crumbles and the entire culture is ripped apart and you can fall flat. And all of a sudden, guys are talking to their agents more than they're talking to each other. And next thing you know, you roll your way into a 5-7. Like, you live by the portal, you die by the portal. And I think that is not a sustainable recipe long term. And at Ole Miss, you're going to have to be more reliant on the portal. I had this conversation with a Division I SEC head coach in the last few weeks, and he's at a good place. He goes, I'm really, 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 really lucky to be at a place where we can rely very heavily on high school recruiting, because there's only a few brands that transcend. There's very few. You can probably name the 5 that people would put into a different stratosphere when it comes to impacting high school players' decision-making. Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, and LSU. Those are the 5 right now that have a slight advantage over everybody else just in the recruit's subconscious mind, because that recruit has only seen those schools win regularly for the last 10 years. Those are like the most consistent programs in winning and competing for championships in the last 6 or 7 years. So while all these recruits are at an impressionable age, those are the programs that have an automatic built-in advantage. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, it's reality. The guy could grow up a diehard Auburn fan. When Alabama calls them, they're going to say, yeah, gosh, I want to go to the NFL. I want to compete for championships. You know what? I'll take that call. It's reality. So you don't have to accept it, but it's the reality. So in an effort to create a more stable environment, in an effort to create a more stable program that will continually be ready to win without having to revamp their roster every year, you go to a place like LSU, one of those 5 programs, and you rely very heavily on recruiting at the high school level, developing within, and then utilizing the portal to supplement the roster with 3 or 4 guys a year or 5 or 6 guys a year, as opposed to 12 or 13 guys a year. That's why he did it, is because it's a place where you can recruit and live with high school recruiting talent and then minor in the portal, as opposed to majoring in the portal and minoring in high school recruiting. That's why he did this. And he took the advice of Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, Jimmy Sexton, others that are very knowledgeable. That's why he ultimately decided to do this. And it was a hard decision, and I think it stung him. I really do. But that's why he did it. Does it make sense to you, Cole?
Not from a timeline perspective, no. And I'll start first by countering your discussion on the transfer portal. You make great points. And I think you're right with a lot of what you said. If you're going to live that way, you very well could die that way from one season to the next. But
Correct.
there's one part of that you left out. Because you can live by the portal, and then you can die by the portal, but you can also be resuscitated by the portal. Because when you lose your starting quarterback, and everyone looks at you and says, uh-oh, put them on life support. They're going to be gone soon. They can't survive this. No way they're getting out of this one. And here comes Trinidad Chambliss. Out of where? The portal.
D2.
And all of a sudden, the portal giveth, the portal taketh awayeth, and the portal resuscitateth. And you're back. All because of what? The portal. So
Correct.
I think there's different ways that you can view what it does for you, what it can do for you, how you live by it, how you build your roster around it. I understand all the high school talent that is there in Louisiana. But what I also understand is that these guys that are behind the Grove Collective and are behind what Ole Miss is doing to go get talent, whatever it turns into down the road, whatever it is right this second, however things are operating right now, I'm not smart enough to tell you what everybody's doing and how they're doing it, and I don't even really care, to be quite honest with you. But I know Ole Miss is doing it well.
No
because
doubt.
they're taking guys from Arkansas, and they're taking guys from Oklahoma State, and they're taking guys from other SEC schools, and they're going in there and finding ways to win games. So not every moment in life allows you to just jump to the next thing. It's not always the right move to make what you consider your best move. I mean, how many guys out there have had a girlfriend for years and years, and that was the love of their life, and they broke up, and then 5 years later they're dating somebody else, and you're ready to go get married, and you're looking at engagement rings, and the ex-girlfriend becomes available. And you're like, oh, man, how do I mean, I've had buddies ask me this question, like, man, I got to go. I was like, no, you don't. Like you just said when you tweeted in, like Scott Shazer said, don't mess with happy.
Correct.
And the grass is not always greener. And just because
100%.
something's bigger and perceived as better doesn't always mean it's right. So, like, just because you get a raise at work and now all of a sudden you can afford the Corvette doesn't mean you got to go out and buy the Corvette. The insurance is going to be a lot. Gas mileage is not going to be as much. The cost of maintenance is going to be more. Like, keep driving your GMC pickup from Royal. There's nothing wrong with that. Keep going with that. You're happy. You like it. You can drive through the mud. It's okay. If it rains, you're good. You got four-wheel drive if you need it. You throw empty boxes in the back and take them to the dumpster, whatever. Corvette doesn't allow that. I just think there are certain points in life, certain points in time that you don't make these decisions. Like, tough luck, man. Okay, you wanted that job. That's a little bit of a better job. Like, you don't just jump to it because it's there now. You're the head coach of that team now. You've taken that team to the playoffs. Like, is your life going to be miserable if you miss this one coaching opportunity? And you just sit there and say, this is a once-in-a-lifetime. No, the hell it isn't. Because USC is going to come open again. Texas is going to come open again. Ohio State's going to come open again. Florida's going to come open again at some point. Like, they're all coming open again at some point. All of them.
Yeah.
It may be 2 years. It may be 20 years. I promise you, every single college football coach in this country right this second will one day not be the head coach at that school. Is that a guarantee? Is that a life lock? I think that's a life lock.
I feel like it's pretty close to a life lock.
You know, unless we come up with some new cloning technology here in the next few years that's going to have, you know, cyborg Ryan Day 2.0 to just keep coaching the team, there will be a time when he is not Ohio State's head coach. They're all coming open. So just because it's available now, I don't think means that you have to do it. When you've accomplished this much at a place, you finish the – what is every decent coach, like in your pillars of what you do in a game, in a practice, in a single play, Greg, what do you have to do? You
Win
have
the
to
play.
execute, you give good effort, and then you do what? You finish. You finish the job. You finish the play. You finish the task. Every sprint that we ran in every summer when we were college football players, finish the drill. That's why you run through the line. As dumb as it was. Bob Newton, when I was at Homewood High School, run through the line. I can remember, see him saying it now. And that's when I was in 9th grade. To Rick Trickett, when I was at Auburn in winter workouts. In the Auburn Memorial Coliseum, Beardy's Memorial Coliseum, at 5 in the morning, run through the line. I'm dying. I don't care. Run through the line. It's the same thing. Every play, every quarter, every drive, every game, you finish the job. And as a head coach, to not finish this job, I don't know how you come back from that. I don't know how you get over it, man. I really don't. And, like, I get it. This is not a discussion of LSU versus Ole Miss. It isn't. It really isn't. And it's like, you can sit here and say, it's the calendar's fault. Tough luck. Like, I mean, do I need to tell some of these grown-ups, like I tell my 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and 5-year-old every day, life ain't fair, man. It's not. Not everything lines up according to plan. Why does Lane Kiffin have to make adjustments with his route tree or his protection? Does he go out in every game and the defense line up the way he wants him to? No. It's not the way it works. You got this team to the playoffs and you walked? It's unforgivable in my opinion. I don't care what job's open. I don't care if it's the Dallas Cowboys. I don't care if it's the freaking Monstars. Like, you don't leave your team before you're going to the playoffs. Like, you can't do it, man. Like, you tell LSU, I'm sorry, and I hate it. I wanted to be your head coach. You tell Florida, I would love to coach the Gators, man. Like, it would be so cool to run out there in the swamp and lead that team out there and, like, do what Spurrier did and do what Urban did and, like, be the next guy there. But you know what? I can't do it right now. I can't. Call me when the next guy fails.
They'd wait.
That too. It's like you're trying to force your leverage on Ole Miss. Why don't you force your leverage on LSU?
Yep.
And hey, man, I'm doing this. Okay, this is where I am right now. I gotta finish that. It might be over in 2 weeks. It might be over middle of January. I will coach your team when I'm done. Now, that's going to be some really uncomfortable press conferences for the next month and a half. Because the longer that job goes and is not filled, I think everybody knows what you're really doing. But if you tell them, I will take it on this day, and that day is 1 minute after our final game concludes. You can announce me to the world. But I'm not leaving this right here right now because I got to finish that first. I don't know how you escape that. I really don't. So we'll talk about it more on the other side next on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. It is 9:22 a.m. where I am in Charlotte, getting set for Read and React tonight with Roman Harper on the SEC Network. Don't forget to tune in there. Also, it is 8:22 where you are in Birmingham. Before we get to Steve Wiltfong, we're going to talk about some of these new coaches and new places, what kind of recruiters they are. Tell our listeners, Greg, about Shannara Flooring.
Well, Fu and his guys have been stockpiling inventory for a while, and it's kind of amazing to see just the amount of inventory they've been able to accumulate. 50,000 square feet of CoreTech flooring by Shaw that's in stock right now. That's that durable, dependable flooring. Every single plank comes with 20 mil wear layer, so it's built to last and priced to move. And no one in town has the CoreTech that Fu has. So with savings of 20 to 40%, it's a deal you just can't touch. So remember Shannara Flooring. When you want CoreTech, call who? Call Fu at Shannara Flooring, 205-518-6423, or go online to fuandyou.com.
All right, let's go to the Higginbotham hotline now. Steve Wiltfong, when it comes to covering recruiting, is the absolute best. And Steve, you got a couple things that you were discussing yesterday about what some recruits are already saying about some of these new coaches. And I just wanted to get it from you of how you think this will change the dynamic of some of these classes, some of the recruits potentially being held on to, and then just really and truly how they are as recruiters and what they might be at their new school. So let's start with Alex Golish. What are you hearing from Auburn recruits, and what do you already know just about what kind of recruiter he is?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on. I think that overall there's an excitement about Alex Golish coming to the Plains, and these guys that are committed to Auburn, a small but talented class, want to be part of this program already, and Alex Golish is a hire that I think will keep the majority of the guys in the fold. And certainly Coach Golish as a recruiter, he's a guy that came up in the Mid-American Conference, pounding the pavement, hitting high schools, helped rebuild Iowa State, making that a formidable program in the Big 12, a program that didn't have very much success at all. In fact, I remember going to an Iowa State-Texas game early in the Matt Campbell tenure where they were close to breaking through and getting a big win, and they lost on a Thursday night or whatever to Texas. And at 5 in the morning the next day, I saw Coach Golish in the airport ready to go recruit kids in Texas, and him talking about, man, we just want it to happen sooner than it's going to happen. It's a process. And then Iowa State went out and beat Oklahoma, beat a ranked TCU team the following 2 weeks, and kind of got it rolling and turned Iowa State into what's really a tough out every Saturday since then. Obviously did a fantastic job at Tennessee as the OC and USF as a play caller, or USF as the head coach. And his track record of recruiting, evaluating, competing, being at different programs where you've had to do different things to win, I think has formed him into the coach he is today. And he's going to come into Auburn ready to compete. He'll certainly push for more infrastructure and resources to have Auburn competing at the highest level. He'll keep people accountable. He's a player's coach. He's someone that will have relationships with top targets from the corner office. Some of these coaches are just closers on the recruiting trail or meet with you when you're on campus. Coach Golish will be involved in the evaluation component. He'll be involved in the relationship component. He likes to have relationships with his players, and that begins on the recruiting trail, getting to know them and their families before they come play for him. So it's an exciting hire for Auburn, in my opinion, and we'll see what he does with the challenge of getting there on the Plains and trying to get it back on track quickly.
How does this offense play right now in recruiting? Because I know at one point, man, it was like the offense that everybody wanted to be in. You're going to get great numbers. You can get a lot of opportunities. It's very simple to play in. It's very quarterback friendly. What does the offense do for the recruiting profile of Auburn moving forward?
Well, I think you look at a program that's really struggled to move the football over the previous tenure, and a lot of that was quite surprising with some of the talent that you thought that they had in the football facility. So getting Coach Golish in there, who's a proven offensive guy, who at Iowa State, they've done a great job of developing quarterbacks and putting their quarterbacks in position to be very successful, to Tennessee, and certainly how explosive they were collabing with Coach Heupel to what he did at USF. I think he's got a lot of things he can point to on the trail that'll resonate with quarterbacks and playmakers, that'll make Auburn more attractive.
Visiting right now with Steve Wiltfong, who covers recruiting, and I think it's one of the best to do it. Talking about some of these new head coaches that are going to be in new places. I imagine you view John Summerall similar to how we do, that him being attached to a brand like Florida is only going to act as a superpower with how he is able to continue being a high-profile recruiter.
Yeah, so obviously him as a recruiter is a little bit of an unknown just because of him being at Troy and Tulane. It's not something that I'm following the daily minutia of, but what I know about Coach Summerall is that he was an active assistant coach recruiter at Kentucky. He's got a juice to him and a confidence to him. Certainly did a great job in the head coach role at both of those places, which earned him the opportunity at Florida. Florida's a place where it's going to be up to him to help gather the resources to make Florida competitive on the NIL front across the board, so they can go out and win the football games that are expected at a place like Florida. I mean, college football is an arms race at this point, and he, it'll be up to him and Coach Golish at Auburn in those places to garner the support to be able to continue to acquire the talent that you need. But I think from a coaching standpoint, he was able to quickly instill a winning culture at Troy and help take the baton that was handed to him at Tulane and keep it rolling at those places. And so at Florida, we'll see what he's like as a recruiter. Again, Florida's got some built-in advantages on the trail, but still looking to get their resources together to be consistently competitive enough to put together the right roster to win at a high level in the SEC.
What do you think the identity needs to be defensively to kind of counter? Because if you look at Tennessee, I feel like the Tennessee is kind of the blueprint here. They've done a pretty good job on defense, even in spite of how often they're on the field. I mean, they have to defend a lot of plays. But for the most part, in Josh Heupel's tenure and Tim Banks' tenure, they've been pretty sporty. So what do you think things are going to look like for the defense as they move forward, depending on which direction they end up going at coordinator?
Well, the thing that Tennessee was able to do in this Heupel era is go out and get some major recruiting wins against Alabama and Georgia and programs of that magnitude on the defensive side of the ball. And they recruited high upside, physical, explosive football players around the line of scrimmage that can be disruptive and have depth. And then obviously they've done a good job in the secondary as well. So for Florida, and really all these schools, it's an obvious statement, but evaluating at a high level. Florida went out there and hired a general manager that they're going to expect to do that as well. Evaluate at a high level. Make sure you're taking the right players. Recruiting is not about who you don't get. It's about who you get and what you can get out of them and how they fit what you're doing schematically and what's their upside physically and athletically in a league like the SEC. And so first and foremost, you got to win recruiting battles against Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, and the other coaches that are competing for conference championships. You're not going to outsmart them for all 85 to 100 scholarship players on your roster. So you have to recruiting wars, but you also have to make sure you're taking the right guys. I mean, people would say all the time, it's so easy for Coach Saban to recruit at Alabama. Well, they were recruiting against Ohio State and Georgia and LSU and good programs. And the one thing, obviously Greg can attest to the most is they brought the right guys in. That the guys that they brought into Alabama were the guys that had great upside, that were ready to come in and compete in that culture and fit schematically in what they were trying to execute on Saturday. So sometimes they turned away a good player that didn't check all the measurable boxes, but they were the right players. Florida hiring a GM from the NFL, they're going to count on him to make the right personnel decisions and the right roster decisions to make this a football team that can consistently beat Georgia.
Steve Wiltfong joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline talking recruiting. I want to just kind of blast through a couple of these other new hires in the SEC and get your thoughts on maybe what you think that will be like. Specifically Lane Kiffin at LSU, because he's leaned on the portal so much. We know what the talent looks like in the state of Louisiana. Does this push him towards maybe having a larger portion of his roster being from high school on an annual basis? How do you view Lane Kiffin and the recruiting cycle moving forward?
I think at LSU, obviously, it's a program that has such prestige that any young man, and particularly in the southern eastern region of the country, they get an offer from LSU, they're going to consider the Tigers, what they've done historically, just the pageantry, pomp, and circumstance around the program. It's an exciting opportunity. Lane Kiffin, historic run at Ole Miss, had some top 20 high school classes, did a fantastic job in the portal. As you said, he's more of a closer on the recruiting trail. He's not a 9-inning guy, but he's charismatic. When you get around him, you know what his resume is, the type of players he's coached and been around, the coaches he's been around. It's very impressive. He knows how to be eloquent in that message when talking to kids and talking to guys out of the transfer portal. He's bringing Billy Glasscock with him from Ole Miss, who's one of the more organized general managers in the sport. But they're going to have recruiters on that staff, and they're going to have recruiters on that recruiting staff that are going to be pounding the pavement. High school is going to be a focus still for LSU. They're going to be able to go after the biggest fish in the transfer portal. And so you're just hoping that Lane Kiffin, with more resources and more prestige, can go to another level at LSU as he's continued to get more experience as a head football coach.
It does seem like part of this did have to do with the stress that the portal provides and the challenges of creating a culture when you are so heavily reliant on the portal. Are you pretty sure that it's going to be a 95% high school recruiting approach from Lane Kiffin versus the 5% portal supplementation, or do you think it'll be a higher percentage of portal entries, maybe at least early on before things settle down?
Well, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but I would think foundationally he would want to be high school and then supplement the roster through the portal. LSU is coming off a season that is not to LSU standards, 7-5. I would expect them to be active in the portal, but I would also think he'll be pleasantly surprised to see how much talent that they have on the roster. And so him figuring out what they have, him and Billy Glasscock figuring out what they have. But if you look at the championship contenders, all of them are high school foundation with the portal supplementing them, whether it's just having the panache to get the best player in the portal, whether you need them or not, but also like, hey, our receiver room's not where we need it because of injuries, or we didn't recruit well, or guys left early in the draft, or our DB room's not where we need it for the same reason. But you look at the Ohio States of the world and the Georgias, those programs are built through high school recruiting. Indiana, a lot of those transfers that helped build that program up just came with Signetti. I mean, those are guys that he brought up with him, and then him rallying guys that were already in the Indiana program, certainly some big portal wins. He's probably the biggest one you point to that says, hey, the portal has helped them as far as being a championship contender. Everybody else, the portal is just a supplement to great high school football recruiting and getting guys that want to play for you, want to play for your program, and are bought into your culture. People want to be led, even the biggest alphas want to be led. So the best leaders are the best football coaches, the guys that are in tune with every part of their program, from scouting to recruiting to what's happening in each position room to what we're doing schematically to how we're playing on third downs, and these are all bigger jobs for all of these guys than what they had previously. They've earned them, but sometimes these jobs swallow these guys up as well. So, we'll see how it goes.
Steve, finally, Ryan Silverfield at Arkansas, Pete Golding at Ole Miss. Now, Pete Golding, we already know from an SEC perspective, is an elite recruiter with what he's done at Alabama and during his time at Ole Miss. But as a head coach, how do you anticipate that goes, and what kind of challenge does Ryan Silverfield have in front of him at Arkansas?
Yeah, so for Coach Golding, like you said, recruiting is going to be one of his calling cards. I expect him to be just immersed in all of the top targets that Ole Miss is recruiting, not just defensively, but offensively moving forward. And so guys that Ole Miss is recruiting, they're going to feel like they have a connection with the head coach. There's a lot of unknown beyond that with him. What type of leader is he? How's he going to set the culture in the building? And it's a conference that's certainly not going to go easy on him. And with Coach Silverfield, he's a stand-up guy, offensive line dude, at heart, tough, hard-nosed guy that had some success at Memphis and replacing an O-line guy at Arkansas, right? And Coach Pittman, you saw his speech talking to the Arkansas football team. He's excited to be there. Beyond that, it's hard to say how much success he'll have at a place that's struggled to have a lot of success.
Absolutely. Steve, great stuff, man. Thanks for the time. Always appreciate it. Great catching up with you, talking a little bit of recruiting with some of these new coaches that are going to be in new places. Look forward to doing it again soon.
Yeah, take care, guys. Happy holidays.
Same to you. Steve Wiltfong, at @Wiltfong_ on Twitter. You can follow him there. On 3 networks where you can find his work at On 3 Sports. Director of National Recruiting there, and he does it as well as anybody. So it's just interesting, Greg, with some of these coaches taking over. Like, I don't think we look at Pete Golding as somebody that's not going to be able to recruit. We don't really know what Ryan Silverfield is going to look like as a recruiter at Arkansas, because I think it's tough to recruit there in general. I think we look at the demeanor, the attitude, the relationship building of John Sumrall now being at Florida. You would think that thing is going to be full speed ahead to be able to continue to bring in elite talent there. And Alex Golesh, as you heard Steve Wiltfong say, he thinks has a chance to have a lot of success as a recruiter now at Auburn.
Well, I think the big thing is, first of all, I'm pretty optimistic about Pete Golding being able to recruit at a really high level. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why Nick Saban kept Pete Golding on the staff as long as he did and wanted him, and did not like when he left and was disappointed when he left and all these other things. I mean, there's a reason why. Why do you think that was? Because he's a great recruiter and he's a really good coach. And anybody that's ever talked to Pete knows he is one of the most approachable, one of the guys that you can connect with. He connects with the players extremely well. So I think Pete's going to do a great job. I fully expect Lane to do a great job. His system sells itself. Like, if you want to go and get featured and score points and get drafted and all this stuff, like, the proof is in the pudding. They had 8 guys drafted off last year's Ole Miss football team, and they weren't exclusive to the offense. They were also on the defensive side as well. So I think the big question about this whole conversation, I think Golesh will be fine too. Like, I think he's a hard-charging guy. I think he works extremely hard. I think he's a chip on the shoulder type of guy, so I like that part of it as well. My big question is Arkansas, because I don't know at all, and it's not a bad thing, I don't know at all exactly, I don't know what their recruiting pool looks like. I mean, I know that if they were going after, say, Eric Morris, which is their original target, I know what they were going after him for, the connection to Texas, the connection to Dallas-Fort Worth, and they were going to have some success there. But I don't know where Silverfield goes. I mean, I think deep south, You look at Memphis, they've had a lot of success. They've had some guys in the portal. They've had success offensively. And at his core, Silverfield's an offensive line guy. You tell me, you're an offensive lineman. Is Silverfield among the better offensive line coaches? I don't know the answer to that. What do you think?
Yeah, when he was just an O-line coach, I think he was. I mean, go back to those Norvell teams at Memphis and how they ran the ball all the time. Doing a little bit more with less. Got a couple guys to the NFL. He's highly regarded as an offensive line coach. And I would imagine that's where some of the emphasis will be. I think he's going to want to try to build it inside out. The tough part about saying that is, I mean, do we not think Sam Pittman was going to do that? Do we not think Brett Bielema was going to do that? So, yeah, I do think the system that he brings, which is essentially Norvell's, are very similar to it, gives you some advantages with how it operates. Now, you got to have a guy pulling the trigger that can make it go. And they're not household names, all the quarterbacks that they had at Memphis for a long time, but they were successful. They were productive. So you got to have a guy that can pull the trigger, that can do it. I know Paxton Lynch didn't work out in the NFL, but he's pretty good asking what they asked him to do in college. So that's going to be a big part of it. And I think what the problem with it, Greg, is like we've talked about Ole Miss and how Lane made it go. We've talked about how maybe LSU will be now. Like, what is the blueprint for Arkansas to win through recruiting? Because I don't know, and I don't think anybody else knows. And so, if we were to super simplify it, is it more Ole Miss or Alabama? And I don't mean finishing where they finish in recruiting every year, but is it 80% portal, 20% portal? Like, and I know a lot of that's probably retainment more so than anything, but you got to get guys that you want to retain first. So I think right out of the gate, you just go get the most talented kids you can get. Like we get to the NFL draft at certain portions, and some of those years when Jacksonville was winning one or two games, whatever it was, or the Jets win one or two games, like you go get best player available, and then you figure it out. If I'm Ryan Silverfield, I take the most talented kids I can get right now, and we'll find a place to get you on the field. I don't care if you sign 11 linebackers. If they're the most talented 11 players you can get, by God, you bring them in. We'll play one at safety. We'll play two outside, two inside. We'll play one at fullback. We'll put them all in kick cover, kick return, punt cover. We'll put you on every teams we got. We'll put you on short yardage. You get them on the field. Like, he's just got to get talent first. And then I think you sort of start to figure out what the roadmap looks like down the road. All right, more on this. We'll continue discussion of Auburn and other new head football coaches and get back to rivalry weekend next right here on Jocks. All right, going to continue the conversation around new head coaches in the league. Got to come back to rivalry weekend as well. Tyler Watt's going to be with us in 12 minutes. Give us his thoughts of the Iron Bowl as he was there in Jordan Hare Stadium on the radio call for that game. Richard Hendricks at 9:30 talks college hoop with us. He'll be with us every Monday thanks to Pizza Pools. You're going to have to wait to hear more conversation on Lane Kiffin to LSU, Alex Goles to Auburn, amongst others, Greg. But one thing you never have to wait for is your dental care.
That's because Family Care Dental always has you covered. I'm very grateful to Family Care Dental, knowing that they can always accommodate everything you need here at the end of the year. That's the big key. End of the year, you have those end of the year dental benefits, and they will expire if you don't get them taken care of in the next 31 days. So, Family Care Dental, they are the practice that's here for you, whether it's emergency care or routine appointments on a busy schedule. They're open Monday through Saturday for urgent care, so you can get the immediate help that you need on the same day, or if you just want a routine dental cleaning appointment that includes free teeth whitening, you can do that as well. They're accepting patients of all ages, and most insurance plans they're accepted. So don't let those end-of-the-year dental benefits expire. With locations in Hoover, Homewood, Alabaster, Fultondale, and Trussville, call Family Care Dental today. 874-9605. That's Family Care Dental, 874-9605.
All right. You go back and look quickly just what Lane Kiffin did during his tenure at Ole Miss. In his sixth season, 3 straight 10-win seasons. That's the longest streak in program history. 4 10-win seasons overall. That ties him with Johnny Vaught for the most by an Ole Miss coach ever. Program record 11 wins in 23 and 25. This year, the first 11-win regular season in program history. 48 straight weeks in the AP poll. That's the second longest in program history. They went 73 weeks from 57 to 63. 3 of the program's 4 highest scoring seasons in the AP poll era came under Kiffin, 2024 and 25. 8 players drafted in the NFL in 2025. That was the most for the program in a single year since 1971, where they had 9 drafted. That included Archie Manning, and I think they had 192 rounds back then. A 743 win percentage. He was 55 and 19, second highest by an Ole Miss head coach, only behind John Vaught's 745. He was 190, 61, and 12. So he made a lot of history there, but he will not continue as the head coach, even with a lot of history on the horizon potentially this season. We'll discuss that and more next right here.
I know this sounds soft. I know this sounds a little soft, but is it one of those situations where it's like, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened type of thing? Because now I view, and maybe you do too, I view Ole Miss in a completely different light today than I did 5 or 6 years ago. I really do. Like, I think Ole Miss is a destination job. I really believe that. It wasn't for Lane Kiffin. It wasn't. He determined that LSU was a better fit long term, which is unfortunate. But I think Ole Miss is in such a better spot today than they were prior to his arrival, and I'm not sure it's close.
There's no doubt. Let's talk about that on the other side. We'll do it when we come back right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. More conversation on where this Ole Miss job is right now moving forward. Next hour, we'll talk to Tyler Watts about the Iron Bowl, 27-20. Alabama gets that win. But I do agree with you, Greg, that this job does look like it's on a different level now. I don't think there's any doubt. And I think some people would say, well, if that's the case, got it there, you got it to a different place, it makes it even more confusing that you would leave than if it is in a different spot now. But that's going to be different opinions for different folks and how they view different things. Just like when you said a few moments ago, be happy it happened, not sad that it's over. I think the two different sides are going to take two different stances on that right now as far as how they feel.
Totally get it. But I really believe this. I don't think ever in its history has Ole Miss been a more desirable place. And that's not just from a football standpoint. I'm talking about from a university standpoint. It's never been better than it is right now. So I think that is a really positive way of looking at it. Now, I'm not saying they should be happy that their head coach just left prior to a college football playoff run. I don't want that for them. I hate it. I hate everything that's transpired about this whole thing. It stinks. I wish there was a way that everyone could have their cake and eat it too, and it's just not reality. But I still think that Ole Miss, this could serve as a galvanizing effect. Look at what happened to Notre Dame. Look at what happened at Oklahoma. Look at the investment that transpired as a result of their coach leaving. This could be a benefit long-term for Ole Miss, as crazy as that may sound.
Back with Tyler Watts next on Jocks.